In recent years, there has been no peace, no respite, no end to suffering, no sharing of peaceful intentions, no will to push forth with plans to nurture a future we can all be proud of. We have seen in societies the world over how malicious, fractious, hateful politics has taken root, grown, and in some cases, even taken over the discussion. It is too dramatic to say that democracy has failed, but it is definitely ailing. It is being allowed to fail, and we are not opposing this dreadful slide into the abyss in enough numbers to make a difference. Climate change has already begun. We have entered a period of crises. This period will only worsen. We have experienced a sustained period of human aggression perpetrated by many sides. The idiotic concept of good versus evil has no place in intelligent debate. Every side is evil when all it seeks to do is profit from human suffering, when all it does is ask others to sacrifice, when it does not reflect upon its own actions, and when it only wants to take, and take again. In this podcast, my guest Jonathan, chairman of the Central Council of Armenians in Germany, talks about the genocide committed by Azerbaijan in Artsakh or Kharapagh against the Armenian population that had for centuries lived on that land and had always called it home. That same genocidal government that produces oil without a concern for the climate it is ruining, and which has become a fossil fuel supply for Europe to replace the brutal Russian supply, has been rewarded by hosting COP29. That is the slap the climate movement must now endure. That is the insult human rights defenders have to deal with. That is the humiliation humanity has to consider in the face of so many ongoing genocides in Africa, in Canada, and elsewhere. The perpetrators of the most horrific of crimes are rewarded by international support, regardless of what they do. Thank you, Jonathan, for your time. Good luck in your fight, and strength to your voice. 200 mic clocking out. Goodbye.
Don't weche pek kuduelo mabiro etu under mic. Don't parodit kod jok mawuoye etu under mic. Seche tin sud buta wawinji etu under mic. Ola wachokre wabed piny biwa winje ero chako moment ndi and a podcast makende.
I'm joined this evening by Jonathan in Germany, and we're going to be discussing a very sober topic. Jonathan, thank you very much for joining me.
Thank you, Zach.
Yeah, so we're talking essentially, as probably people who have followed my podcast know, I am of Armenian origin, and I've never really addressed very big Armenian issues. However, there is a huge Armenian topic to which we have to pay attention and to which we have to refer. And this is the genocide of 2023. Jonathan, can you give us a few more details about this?
December 2022, Azerbaijan blocked the last way to Armenia from Artsakh, Nagorno-Karabakh. And they started with this hunger blockade that lasted for more than 9 months. And in September 2023, there was the attack, and this was against all the ceasefire agreements that were made after the war 2020. So they forced them to leave the region where they were inhabitants for centuries, the Armenian inhabitant population. And the central thing in this, which is also a key element why it is a genocide, it was intently done. So the crime of genocide, if you look at it juristically and according to the UN Genocide Convention, so it is a crime of intent. And this intent was clearly there because it was stated by the president Ilham Aliyev. Another major thing is that the leaders of Artsakh, Nagorno-Karabakh, They were arrested at that crossing when they opened the corridor after the 9 months of hunger blockade, and they used hunger as a method of expelling and starvation. And this genocide is still going on because the whole leaders of the former presidents, and they are still in the prisons in Baku at the moment. So it's an ongoing genocide, and it's a genocide because Azerbaijan, even the parliament, has decided to control regions of Armenia proper. There's a parliamentary decision that Armenian proper is Azerbaijan, and so they clearly and openly speak. So last month there was a first report submitted to the ICC related to the genocide charges, so that the ICC investigates this. So this is the thing, and there are a lot of experts. The Lemkin Institute has spoken about this. Many experts have warned last year, yet it happened. And the people, there are no Armenians, or just a handful are in Artsakh or Nagorno-Karabakh living there. All more than 120,000 were expelled, forcefully expelled. That's the situation, and the leaders, they are still in the prisons in Baku.
So just to come back to a few specific points, we're talking about warfare which was conducted against the arrangements of a ceasefire without any additional declaration of mobilization. And the attacks were carried out against civilian areas with drone missiles. Is that correct?
The 9 months of completely blockading the region was the psychological warfare and part of the genocidal intent. So using hunger and using the blockade to exhaust the normal civilian population. And then there was this kind of blitzkrieg or attack, which was intended so that the people flee. There are evidence of brutal and really unhuman massacres or killings of individuals or threats that were made. And one was an Armenian soldier, and that case is particular in that report also that was submitted to the ICC last month or 2 months ago. Yeah. So there is evidence. There is a lot of evidence. The ICC should investigate this. There are many statements by officials in Baku stating that their aim is to chase them away like dogs. Ilham Aliyev said that, for example.
Yeah, it's amazing the similarities really with what is happening in Palestine at the moment. So it seems that the ICC has quite a bit on its hands with regards to dealing with genocide, which also tells us quite a bit about where we are as a species. So going on about the activities that the Central Council of Armenians in Germany is conducting, of which you are the chairman. Last month, you held meetings at the Bundestag, so the German Parliament, and the Foreign Office. And this, you spoke particularly about the issue of prisoners. Is that correct?
Exactly. We had meetings at the Bundestag and the Foreign Office, where the central theme or issue was also the release of the prisoners in Baku, that Germany should take responsibility, and because Germany is also has signed the UN Genocide Convention, and we explained this matter, that there is an obligation on this behalf. So they can't, it's not just a policy or so on. So they have to do something. So we addressed this. We had Dr. Luis Moreno Ocampo speaking to the deputies also. He was the first prosecutor at the ICC. And we spoke with people in the Foreign Office addressing this, saying that Germany really needs to do more on this. And during that weekend, President Aliyev was visiting Chancellor Scholz. So we had also on the 26th, we had a press conference, and we had in Berlin, and we had a small demonstration in Berlin in front of the chancelleries. And this really small demonstration made Chancellor Scholz wait for nearly 2 hours. He was afraid from a small demonstration. So I want to mention this because this is activism, and taking up the fight for justice is extremely important. And even small groups and dictators and criminals like him, they are afraid. They are at the end also humans. So we have to hold the mirror to them and say, hey, this is enough. So
very, very interesting as well, because a lot of people talk about, yeah, what can I do to change things? This is politics on a global level. And here you are saying exactly everybody in their local area, in their region, in their city can make a stand. And even if it's a group of 10, 15, 20 people, we're confronting humans, even if they don't behave like humans. And it still has an impact. Moving on from that, you've got some other activities planned. You've had the Bonn conference as well this week. Would you like to talk a little bit about that?
Yes. So as you might know or not, so there is the climate conference of the UN. So this year, that conference, the COP29, will take place in Baku in November. So the preparation for that conference is taking place right now in June, starting from June 3 till June 13 in Bonn at the World Center of Conferences. And there are a lot of delegates from all over the world, about 5,000, 6,000 delegates, climate activists from different countries, politicians, and so on. So they're all taking part to participate in that COP29. Now, the tragic part is that how can such an important climate conference be organized in a country that is genocidal, that abuses the basic human rights of its own population and people? So there's like this is so tragic. Yet this conference is also a chance so to discuss the Armenian genocide of 2023 and to demand the release of the prisoners. So every delegation, instead of boycotting it, they should stand up and say, hey, Mr. Aliyev, you can't do this. You have to release the prisoners. There are two big issues today concerning humanity and the world. It's the issue of genocide, and we have to find a global solution. And there's the issue of the climate. So it's paradoxical, really, to organize such an important climate change conference in a country that is a fossil energy dictatorship. It's absurd. It is a chance. It is a chance to address this, and this is it. So to come, what we do. So we had a very small demonstration on Monday when the start was. We are planning a next demonstration on June 7, where we will address clearly the release of the prisoners as a step, and we're asking the delegates, the politicians, to address this issue. We sent a letter to all Bundestag members. We had discussed, there were thoughts of different initiatives, how they could support this. So our demonstration will be with this main issue, that the delegates who go there raise up and stand and say, no, we cannot go to a country unless they are released, unless certain things are changed. So this is our demonstration. This is what we are doing, and any solidarity on this behalf, we are grateful, because this is a human matter. It's not an Armenian issue.
Any kind of genocide committed in any continent, whether that's in Europe, outside of Europe, in Africa, these are events which touch every human soul. They need to be recognized, and the perpetrators need to be brought to justice, not have their nations rewarded with significant conferences in the way that they have been to date. And not only conferences, but also perhaps international sporting events and so on. These are also issues that need to be considered. So one thing that we're asking, as you've said, if anybody is in the area, is near Bonn, and would like to participate, would like to bring their support, they are welcome to do so. In addition to that, however, people whose nations are going to be attending COP29 in Baku later this year, make some kind of pressure or communicate awareness. If I'm not mistaken, you've also put together some hashtags. Would you like to talk about the hashtags and what kind of suggestions you've got for social media and so on?
So basically, this conference in Baku, it is a policy to greenwash the genocidal policy of Aliyev and Azerbaijan. So one will become part of denying the genocide of 2023 also, if one participates at such a conference and not opens his mouth. So one of the hashtags is greenwash genocide and COP29, and another is free the Armenian prisoners. Free the Armenian prisoners. These are hashtags which would support us. And if you're in the area in Bonn, just join us. It will be at 14 o'clock in the afternoon. We will be there, and we will address this. We will have a handout. We will speak about these things. Human rights NGOs are supporting us. We'll have a press release on that. And our main real aim is the release of the prisoners, and that the delegates who are our partners going there for a climate conference, which is very important, be brave enough to address that violation of human rights of the Genocide Convention. And yes, and at the end, justice must be seen, and we have an ICC. And a few months ago, no one thought that Netanyahu or Hamas or Putin and so on, they would be called from there. And it is very logical that the next one will be Ilham Aliyev, because there are real facts, and there has been a report submitted. So this is not like unreachable, and it has to be investigated. And yes, you can support us on social media, speaking about this, making a post, maybe addressing the issue, asking your regional or your deputy or parliamentarian the simple question: are you aware that the conference is taking place in Baku and there are prisoners? Are simple questions. We need to be a grassroots movement, like really do what they can do. Make a post. If you're listening to this, share it just for the information. Really, it helps that people are informed that there are things, extreme violation, like at the present, as we are speaking, the millennial Armenian heritage buildings, all churches and so on, they are destroyed right now, and there are satellite pictures and so on. So how come in such a country, such an important UN conference takes place? And it's not about boycotting. It's just really address it. Be brave. This will bring us as humans closer. This will say we need to hold together on this.
Jonathan, thank you very much for delivering your message with the passion with which you have delivered it. It's long since been a point on this podcast that if we live in democracies where people are so proud to call their nations democracies, then we have to demand a better form of representation of the principles that those democracies supposedly uphold. And unfortunately, we see that our supposedly democratic governments are far too happy to shake the hands of and to sell weapons to aggressive, undemocratic regimes. And this is something that should essentially come to an end. And we would like to see responsible government in many governments across the world. So I thank you for delivering your message. And of course, you have my support.
Thank you. Thank you for this opportunity. I had to speak with my heart, and we will go on with this matter, and any support in this regard. It's a human issue, and I'm thankful that the message could be told here. Thank you, Sak.
And mic.